Salut tout le monde. Hi everybody. Welcome to another episode of Township Talks with Mayor Pierre. Bienvenue à un autre épisode de Parlons du Canton avec Mayor Pierre. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening who's watching live. Also like to thank everybody who's going to be watching this after the fact when we're not live. So merci à tout le monde pour être assis ce soir ou puis merci à tout le monde qui va prendre le temps de le regarder à un autre tantôt. So today's guest I have with me is Mr. Joey Abrams. So let's bring in Joey.
How's it going, Pierre?
Hey, good. Yourself, buddy?
Good. Good to see you.
You as well. So, Joey, for those that don't know you, maybe give a little spiel about who you are, how long you've been here, that kind of stuff.
Sure. So originally grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, just north, a little mining town named Avec. Stayed there till I went to university in Sudbury at Laurentian, and through that I took the sports administration course and ended up taking a internship with the Montreal Alouettes. So me and my girlfriend at the time picked up and moved out to Montreal for the internship, and a 3-month internship turned into a 12-year professional football career. And it ended up with me being the assistant general manager there in years 11 and 12. That kind of fell apart. And Ottawa is a place where my wife and I had always wanted to be. Her sister had moved to Embrun at the time. So we thought, well, let's go look for a house around Embrun. Yep. And we were on our way to Metcalfe, actually, to look at a house. And we drove past Russell and fell in love immediately. And this was 2017, and we have not looked back. We've every day we fall in love with the community a little bit more and more.
Yeah, that's seems to be a common story, right? People just driving through, or they hear about it, and or friends that moved here, or military family, or people they work with move here, and it seems like when they come and visit, they makes up their mind right then and there.
100%, and it's everything. It's the small town feel, but we're growing. It's the people. Interestingly enough, I was getting my real estate license, and one of the people I was in the real estate course with was Chris Boucher's cousin. And I started talking to Chris Boucher about Russell because we were moving here. And, sure enough, Chris is Corinne's husband, and, fast friends there. And, started my business with, a local business, and I've just kind of spread out from there, and more and more friends, which we really didn't have in Montreal.
Right.
For anyone that's worked in professional football or knows someone that did, it's there's not a lot of time outside of football, so it was really, really welcoming to come to a community where all you have is time and friends, really. Yeah,
exactly. And it doesn't matter if you're meeting somebody for the first time, you get that sense that, it's just everybody's so welcoming here for the most part. I mean, there's always that oddball there, but for the most part, you just meet people and right away you get that warm feeling.
100%. And it's everything. I mean, it's, where else do you go where, I don't, you and I hadn't talked about this prior now, but where else do you go where you go to a trivia night and you ended up sitting at the table with the mayor and the rest of the council, right? And that was, I don't think we won that night, but
no. It was funny because when I was saying to my wife, I said, oh, I'm on with Joey tonight. She's like, who's Joey? I said, real estate guy. They sat with us at trivia night. She's like, oh yeah, her wife was really, really smart.
Yeah, she is that. She is that.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's the one thing I got to say. I miss trivia night. I truly do. That was such a fantastic, time. You just go there. You just have fun. That's all it was.
100%. And you're raising money for always a good cause.
Yeah.
I think the last one I went to was for the fire department, and I know they did really, really well.
Yep.
The other, and there's a bunch of good, there's auctions every now and then there. And I always made sure to leave there with an auction item, much to my wife's chagrin, because I overbid on something. But again, it's, you talk about the small town feel, and, that led me to Rethink Vintage, Danielle Norris's company, where I bought 2 items by an auction there. And, Danielle turned into a friend. And, it's just, I love that everything you do in the community, as long as you're putting your mind and your heart into it, you're going to come out on top with a relationship. And I find that more prevalent here than anywhere else I've lived.
Yeah, exactly. It's It's like I've said it before. I grew up in Vanier, and we moved out here for business reasons and raising kids and stuff. But that was the one thing when I opened my business here. I wasn't actually living here, but soon as I started interacting with people and saw the atmosphere, it was kind of like, okay, we got to move here.
Yeah, 100%. And being in real estate, and I've tried to in my first year and a little bit, I was really wide. I had a wide area. I'd be over in Canada, I'd be in Almont, sold a house in Carp. But the more I grew into the business, the more I wanted to really hone in on, the Russell Township and the surrounding area. And the more people that I've helped buy homes here, there's not one person that said, oh, I've made a mistake. I got to get out of here. I got to sell this house. It's always been the vast opposite in that we love this place. We should have come sooner. And, with the house prices now, they probably should have.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's one thing is for anybody who's looking to come here, our average age in the township is fairly young. I think if I remember well, it's like 39 years old or 40 years old. So, a lot of young families out here, when you look at other places in Prescott Russell where, the average age is significantly higher.
Yeah. So, and it's a little sleeper community, right? Where, I mean, it has everything you need. It has all the amenities. Do we need a swimming pool? Well, you and I will talk about that a little bit later on. There are things that we need to add on, but those are all opportunities, and those are things to look forward to and work towards. And, you can come together as a community and build those things together, and it just makes the community that much better.
Well, yeah, and we're in a perfect position. When I look at other communities and other municipalities around, it's like we are in a very good position to move forward in this township in a safe way, and still get all those things we're looking for without without putting ourselves in huge significant debt, right? So as a real estate guy, I'm sure you have figures and numbers what's going on in the township. I know I'm always looking at real estate, and there's not much.
Well, so so I put some numbers together, and we can start there. So months of inventory is a statistic realtors use to depict what the market's doing, how fast the market's moving. So when you talk about months of inventory, you talk about how long does it take for the market to eat up or sell the homes that are currently on the market. So in 2016, the average months of inventory was 12.4, meaning it would have taken 12.4 months to sell everything that was on the market at that point in time.
In Russell Township.
This is Russell Township, strictly right. Russell Township. This is Russell, Embrun, Marionville, and the surrounding rural areas.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2017, you're talking about 8.9. 2018, and then to this year, or I should say this past year, 2020, was 1.8. 1.8 months. And there was a couple of months in that where it was zero. So in November and December, it was zero, meaning houses didn't last on the market. And you see that every day. What's happening now widespread is you're going to see offers held on, and they're going to depict a date of when they're going to accept offers. And they're doing that to try to entice multiple offers so that the seller has the advantage to pick which offer best suits them. Right.
Which traditionally wasn't something we were seeing a few years ago, right?
Well, it's supply and demand, right? So, if it's a seller's market, and right now, we're not anywhere near a balanced market. And if you get to a buyer's market, we'll let those tables turn, right? And then that's when you see the months of inventory creeping back up. Talk about sale prices with supply and demand. If you're talking about just a simple supply and demand curve. Now, I have numbers specifically for Embrun and Russell here, and I'm sorry I'm looking over the side, but this is where my numbers are. I don't know them when we're talking about this many different communities, but the Russell Township in 2019, the average sale price was $386, and then you fast forward that to 2020, and it's $482. It's a difference of 20%.
Wow,
that's a huge jump. I mean, that's to just make it very, very clear cut. If you have a $400,000 home in 1 year, it's now worth $500,000.
Yeah.
It's vast. It's sorry, those numbers are a little bit wrong. 375 to 450, but those numbers are eye-popping. Just last year, 2019 to 2020, Russell, so the town of Russell, the village of Russell, they were up 26.26% in average sale price, 408 to 515. I mean, that's just, those numbers don't exist. Ottawa was around 20%.
Yeah.
Just to put that into kind of a comparison.
Well, and it's for those that don't know, when we look at the demographics for the township, we actually have the medium household income in Russell Township is actually higher than it is in Ottawa, as far as how much money families bring in income wise. So we actually have,
because like I was saying earlier, we're a little sleeper community, right?
Yeah.
So, your government workers, I could throw a rock down the street here and, it'll pass by 4 or 5 houses who work for the RCMP or OPP.
Yeah.
That's just the type of community we live in, right? Which is great because it's awesome for security. Plus it's awesome for just that stability in a subdivision, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I follow quite a few on social media. I follow quite a few real estate agents, local real estate agents. And it's like, they'll post this house for sale. And within like 3-4 days, it's like sold sign.
Right. And,
wow.
And that's why it's, everyone will say to you, oh, you're a real estate agent, you must be doing really, really well. And, some are and some aren't, because it's a really, really tough market. You got to find those leads and you have to separate yourself. You have to provide value where, you can sell a house right now. Anyone could really sell a house right now, but can you negotiate the highest price possible? I mean, I know I can, just to kind of, pump my tires a little bit. Just in the town of Russell, I sold my homes last year for on average 114% of list price.
Yeah.
And the next closest was 109, and that's a minimum of 5 listings. So, there's something that I could post on and say, hey, listen, yeah, I can get the most amount of money for your house. There's things that I do that, really lifts stress from the process. And I believe wholeheartedly in that, because for some people, it's a really stressful situation. I had a client just around the corner from me who sold late last year, and she was just absolutely mortified about the windows. She just wanted her windows cleaned. And I said, no problem. And I hired Peak, Jamie Cochran's company, Peak Windows, and they came in and they cleaned it up for me, paid Jamie, and she's, client for life. She's an advocate for me now. She loves me. And it was something very, very small for me. I helped out a local business and the client's happy. And, if I can pick something like that up for every single client, I think it goes a long way.
Well, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's customer service, right? It's like you say, it's not just sticking a sign on the front lawn and then here we got these offers. There's more to it.
Well, there should be. There certainly should be. But I mean, real estate's no different than any walk of life. You have good mayors, you have bad mayors. You have good real estate agents, you have bad real estate agents, good doctors, bad doctors, good teachers, bad teachers. And, I see someone, just posted here in the chat. It's a matter of who you align yourself with. And if you align yourself with the right people, you usually do better for yourself in the long run.
Yeah. So here's a question. When you were a kid, did you ever work in retail?
I actually worked at Home Hardware for 5 years.
Yeah, because I find that people who have worked in the retail industry kind of understand the customer service aspect of business.
Pierre, I am such a stickler for it. Like to this day, I don't do it as much now with COVID going on because I'll order it online through the application. But if I go to Subway and I don't get lettuce to the ends of my sandwich, I am livid. I'm paying for the lettuce. Give me the lettuce. And, you get these people that'll put like 8 inches of lettuce on a 12-inch sandwich, and it drives me nuts. It's a small thing, but it's taking pride in your work. Yeah.
Me, it's the olives. I put lots of olives on, and they put like 5, 6, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
What a vile vegetable that is, an olive. Is it a legume or a vegetable? Never liked olives. Never.
Oh. You never liked olives? Here's a good one for you, though. Pizza. Pineapple, yay or nay?
You like pineapple? I kind of like the pineapple.
I love the pineapple.
Not an every time thing, but as a treat every once in a while.
Yeah. I have no issue with
pineapple. I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Olives, though, and even, I'm an adult now, right? I hated them when I was a kid. And every now and then, maybe every 6 to, 10 months, I'm like, okay, well, I'm an adult. I'm going to try an olive, and I'll pop one in there, and no, sir. Spit it out. Can't do it.
Yeah, it's funny. We're just having that discussion at supper time with my mom and the kids, and we're talking about things we like and don't like. I have kids that don't like tomatoes, and I was like, as a kid, I hated tomatoes, but I love ketchup, right? And it's just like there's things your taste buds change as you get older. But I mean, for the longest time, I kid you not, I hated pasta as a kid. I hated pasta until I got a job where I had an Italian boss. And then he brought me to Olive Garden, and he took me to a restaurant that his family knew. And it was like, you're going to learn to love pasta. And then I just fell in love with it.
He flipped you.
He flipped me. Yes, he did.
My daughter will not eat spaghetti sauce. She'll have just dry pasta, maybe a little bit of butter and Parmesan cheese on it, but she will not touch spaghetti sauce.
Give it time. That might change as she gets
older. She's 6. Eventually it's going to change. But yeah, she won't.
I don't know if you do this as a parent. I did this with my kids, and they still bug me about it. But I always used to tell them, I don't like that. They're like, I don't like that. I said, the doctors say you got to try 10 bites before you decide if you really like it or not. I don't know. Hey, well, they would hate me. They would take bites, and at like 5, they're like, I don't like it. I said, no, that's only 5. You got to go 5 more. And then, but once they did it the 10 times, and then they would say they don't like it, I couldn't really bug them again with that one on that item. But, even like at supper time tonight, I was like, my mom's like, she didn't give me something. My son's like, why didn't you have that? I'm like, I don't like it. He goes, I didn't see 10 bites.
Oh. So my daughter's like, I pride myself. So in football, part of my job was negotiating contracts. So it's something I'm extremely comfortable with. And my daughter might be better at it than I am. And she's 6. And, the 10 bites would quickly turn to 2 or 3 if it was up to her, because she can negotiate, boy. It's funny watching it. It's just listening to her talk. Yeah. She's got those big brown eyes and, nice plush skin. And I'm like, all right, 2 bites.
Yeah.
And she got out of eating supper today because she was eating pita and hummus. So she's like, I'm not eating supper. I'm like, you know what? I'm just at a point now where I'm not even going to, you're 6 and it's not worth getting you all riled up. And
yeah. I tell my kids all the time, I'm at a point in my life that I don't need stress. I don't want stress. So if I'll have a conversation, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm good with it. They're old enough now. My kids are 21, 19 or 21, 20 and 17. So it's like, you guys are old enough to make up your own minds now. I'll give you the advice I can, my thoughts on something, but it's up to you guys now.
Yeah. Hay's out of the barn.
Yeah.
They are who they are.
Exactly.
Time to make their own mistakes now.
Yeah. So anything else real estate front you want to mention or?
Well, just, so these statistics come out every month, and anyone that's interested in them, feel free to give my Facebook site, a Facebook webpage a follow. I have them on there every month. If there's something specific you'd like to know, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to help you out. I do complimentary market analysis. So if you want to know how much your house is worth, I do that free of charge, no problem. I'll come in, take a look at your house, go back, do some homework, and come back and present you a full-fledged market analysis. I love it. I just, it's something I've always wanted to do. It's funny. I'm looking up here. Sorry, I got to point correctly, but it's kind of in, so here, this is a little mine cart, if you see where I'm pointing. So just before I graduated university, I actually worked in the mines for about a year as a construction worker. And then here, if I move a little bit over, there's the Grey Cup. So, we won 2 Grey Cups with the Alouettes in 09 and 10. And then I got to real estate. So like my adult life is right in these 3 little things here. So it's funny thinking about that. But I love real estate. It's something I've always wanted to do. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. And I'm glad I did it in the way I've done it, because the one thing that I've learned, especially through my 20s, is I didn't know, or I wasn't ready to learn how to work with people. Right. I didn't have patience for them. I grew up in a small town, very, very blue collar, where it was task-oriented work, right? You're working at the mines. It's, here's your job description, go do it, and you get your paycheck. you never really had to learn how to work with people. And I stepped on a lot of toes and made a lot of mistakes as I was growing in football. And I'm way better for it now. And it's really made me appreciate relationships to a whole different level, because it's really all we have. You know, if you strip everything away, it's your relationships. And, you know, I was on Twitter a little bit earlier today and talk about just the power of relationships. James Duthie, who's a TSN guy and from Ottawa, there was just a bunch of layoffs across the country. I think there was 3 or 4 radio stations that got just absolutely wiped out.
Yeah.
And James Duthie took the time to contact every single person that got laid off and just say, hey, well wishes, right? And I mean, that speaks to his class and character, but at the same time, those are relationships that matter to people. And that's what drives everything, you know, whether it's business, life, personal, it's the end all be all, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily about the quantity of friends you have, but it's the quality of people that you build those relationships with, right? You know, especially in a world where it's a lot of social media now. You know, it's you see people with 5,000 friends, and it's like, you know, that's great depending what you're doing it for. But I mean, how many of those do you actually consider friends?
Right? Well, yeah, and I mean, social media is such a, I don't know what the word I'm looking. Cancer might be a strong word, especially that word. But it's just, you see people that take everything to heart, and it really, really ruins people's relationships, right? Like, I have a cousin who goes on to Facebook, and he'll post about COVID and how much, you know, the government's doing wrong and everything's wrong and it's negative. And then he fires up a whole group of people, and the whole conversation is nothing but negative energy, and it's just draining people, right? It's taking everything out of them, where it should kind of be the other way, like you're talking about, right? It's an opportunity to reach out and talk to people. I had an aunt message me today saying, hey, your cousin's getting married in April. Do you want to take part in the Zoom wedding? And I'm like, sure, it sounds great.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the happy part of the internet that we never really hear about anymore.
Well, yeah, it's when you look at it, as opposed to that cousin who invites you to down south wedding, and it's like, oh yeah, come down south, and you're like, okay, I love you, but it's going to cost me like $3-4 grand to go down to your wedding. A Zoom wedding might, you know, is probably a better option.
It is. I can't get my dance on a Zoom wedding though.
Hey?
I can't get my dance on as much at a Zoom wedding.
Yeah, well, it depends how many drinks you have before you get on Zoom, I guess. So we got a question that's just popped up for you, Joe. So, question for Joey: why work for a city broker when there are great brokers here in Russell Township? Remax, Exits, C21.
Okay. So Royal LePage Performance Realty, who's the brokerage I chose to work with, is actually widespread across Eastern Ontario. So we have 6 offices from Bank Street, Pretoria, all the way to Hawkesbury. So we cover a very, very wide array of Eastern Ontario. There's 2 Royal LePage brokerages in the Ottawa area, prominent Royal LePage brokerages. One's Team Realty, and their offices are more, west oriented, where ours are east oriented. Now, those agents can work wherever they want, right, geographically, but the offices themselves are separated. So we have an office in Cornwall, we have an office in Hawkesbury, like I said. And, you know, there's potential where I have some things going on the side here where we might be bringing something a little bit closer to home, but I'm not ready to jump on anything or make any announcements on that just yet.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it can be difficult to try and have an office in every single community, right? You know, it's just not feasible, especially in a world like today where a lot of it can be done distance wise, right?
Well, 100%. And it's, you know, brokerages are funny things. So when real estate's funny. So when you get your real estate license, you don't worry about getting a job, because brokerages want to hire you, because at the end of the day, you're bringing them money, right? You do a deal, they take a cut of your deal, but you have to do business within a brokerage. You can't do business without a brokerage. It's called organized real estate. And I interviewed brokerages. So I took time and I went to half a dozen brokerages across Ottawa, and there wasn't one that was close in my mind when it came to deciding. It was feel, it was relationships. Like I said, it was the positive atmosphere, training and all of that stuff. That was a part of it, but it was, what do I feel is right? When I left football, I promised myself I would never make a decision based on money again.
Right.
And I didn't. There was other brokerages I could have went to and had better splits and, got paid maybe a little bit more. But I don't think I would have had the same training. And I don't think I would have had the same type of relationships that I do now. So I don't regret that decision. And like I said, I'm more home-based here in Russell than I am Ottawa-based. I do more work in Russell than anywhere else, and surrounding area. Russell, I mean the township.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, you get to go to Montreal games pretty much anytime you want?
If I picked up the phone, I could probably get into an Alouettes game. Yeah, I flash the Grey Cup ring, and it's an automatic ticket. No, Danny Machocha, the current general manager of the Montreal Alouettes, actually, him and I talked quite often before he was named general manager, and he was just kind of asking questions about the culture and the situation, and what would happen if. And he's the right guy for the job. Jim Pop, my boss, was great. Actually, the guy who hired me in Montreal is actually the current general manager in Ottawa with the Red Blacks, Marcel Desjardins.
Okay.
He was the assistant general manager for the Alouettes at the time, back in 2005. And I learned a lot from those guys, but I think that Montreal's culture was ready for a change. The original owner kind of passed it off to his son, who was not the same type of person. Again, there was more money driven than it was relationship based, and it showed across the board.
Yeah.
And it was heading to a place where I didn't feel comfortable with, and I was ready to move on. Well,
we all hit points and times in our life where you reflect and you say, is this really what I want to be doing, right? And I think now more than ever, people during COVID are looking inside and saying, you know what, if I'm going to make a change now, now's the time to evaluate what's going on.
Yes, and that's what we did. And my wife kept her job, so she asked her employer straight up, "Can I work from home? We're leaving. Can I work from home?" And they said, "Absolutely. We don't want to lose you."
Yep.
So they let her work from here. So her office is Old Town West in Russell, and she works for a multinational company, and international, I guess is the word. And we couldn't be happier.
Oh, that's awesome. So we've been going. It goes by quick, bud. We've already had 30 minutes.
Oh boy.
So now I know that usually the last 30 minutes of the show, we kind of talk about township stuff because, I'm the mayor, and that's the point of this is Township Talks. So I know that on social media, you had thrown it out there for if people had questions and stuff. I think you've mentioned you have a few questions. So I'll try and answer it to the best of my knowledge.
Well, 100%. And I really want to get to that because there's a bunch of people who actually threw a lot of questions. Some of the questions were very, very similar in nature. I'm not going to name any names. Before we do that, Pierre, if it's okay with you, I just want to give a shout out to local businesses.
100%.
If you've looked at my feed in the last month, 2 months, I'm really trying to focus and push out local businesses as much as I can, especially restaurants, because they're taking it, I think, on the chin probably more than most.
Yep.
So, for anyone that's listening, anyone that's watching, if you're wondering what to do for supper one night, or if you're thinking about making an Amazon purchase where you could, wait a day and maybe get it at, Beyond the House or, whatever other craft store that we have here local, just think about that, because that money stays in the community. And when it stays in the community, it goes back to the community, and, it helps our little economy here. And, to kind of boot with that, the one thing that for anyone that was listening to my post or watching my post for the last couple of days, I actually wanted to do something a little bit special for this meeting. Yep. And I went and I talked to one of my favorite local businesses, Took de Brew. There it is there.
Nice.
All right. Took de Brew. So I talked to Nicholas from Took de Brew. And for the next 30 minutes, this is now Pints with Pierre. It's not Pints with Fox anymore. It's Pints with Pierre. I know you're not a big beer drinker, Pierre, but
no, I'm more of a tequila guy.
Okay. And, maybe you and I will decide how we're going to do this, but we're gonna give away this basket here today too. And this is from Took de Brew. Nicholas and I talked yesterday, and we really have to support our local businesses, and not just real estate agents, but Rethink Vintage for Furniture, Foodland, Independent. All these companies need our help. Tiffany's Pizza. I don't want to name certain ones, but there's a wide variety. The home hardwares. Let's do our part and make sure that they're getting. I see Robin texted here from Homestead Pub, so that's.
Well, that's it, and you know what? And that's it, right? We've got so many amazing businesses, and when people aren't sure who to support, I always say, if you've been part of a hockey team, a baseball team, which businesses have you gone to see when you needed a donation? Those are the businesses we need to support, because they've been supporting, our local economy, our kids' sports team, trivia night. All these businesses have been supporting the community for years. And you know what? They're in a situation now where they need our support.
100%. And, like I mentioned her earlier, and one of my favorite people in the world is Corinne Boucher. And it's just for that. I mean, you know what? You go to Foodland, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive than your, no frills or whatever. But you're walking in there, you're getting top quality customer service, like we talked about earlier. Everything is clean. The produce is immaculate, and the money you spend there is going right back into the community, because she cares about the community more than most, right? And she's not the only business person that like that. I think most business people in this community make it what it is by doing the things that you're just talking about.
Yeah, definitely. So we had talked a little bit about how we're going to draw for this. So we have about 35 people that are currently watching. So I guess I'm going to ask a question, and I know Joey knows the answer, but I'm going to ask a question, and the first person to type in the right answer is going to win this basket from Joey and Took de Brew. And you're okay with that, Joe?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Nicholas would be happy with that, and I'll deliver it. And if it's in Old Town West, I'll deliver it tonight.
All right. So this, get ready, get on your keyboard. Which movie is this background from? So I'm curious to see who's going to know this. I'm sure people are looking at it now. Those who know me probably have a good idea what kind of background that's from. Oh, somebody threw it out there, but it's not quite. I'm looking for. No. There we go.
Story.
There we go. Somebody got it. So Amanda Simpson is the first one that came up with Doctor Strange.
Awesome.
Yeah. I got to laugh because David Ryan said Game of Thrones. And it's because I was speaking to David earlier today. I had a meeting with him, and I said, I'll probably have my Game of Thrones on for tonight. So, but yeah. So
Amanda, I believe, is actually a mortgage broker who works with Weaver Financial, who's also another local company. So that's awesome. I'm glad to see that.
So congratulations, Amanda. That's awesome. Thanks again, Joe, for this. And thanks again to Took de Brew for helping donate with this. This is awesome.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's get to Township Talks.
All right, Township Talks. Pints with Pierre.
Yeah.
So this is a question that, and then you and I talked about this briefly, and people want to know, what role does the Embrun Co-op play in future development for the township, and do they have power to block potential development?
Good question. I've lived here for just over 20 years now. And I've heard the stories, if you will, how the co-op blocks everything and nothing gets done because of the co-op and this and that. I can tell you, I can't speak to the past before I was on council, but I've been on council for, over 10 years now. And I've never had the co-op interfere or try and jam up anything. I know the McDonald's where it's coming. That's the Emblem Co-op. They're the ones who have made that deal with McDonald's and are bringing in McDonald's on their land. I know the Emblem Co-op. I mean, they've made significant investments in the community over the years. But like I say, they might have gotten that reputation years ago before I was on council. But I've never had that interaction with them. I've had numerous conversations with the current GM, and he's looking to work with us from an organizational point. If I remember well, I think if you drive next to Amazon, the co-op actually bought a piece of land there, and they have a sign up, because they're all about trying to develop. If I look at Independent, you have that little building next to Independent where they started growing legumes and different types of lettuce and all kinds of stuff that doesn't travel well. So they're actually, they're trying to develop their own market like a lot of companies are. But I heard that for years and years. And, I got to say, before I was on council, I kind of believed it. But since then, I've never had any issues. I've never seen anything with them. So.
Well, you said something that's really important there that I think, because you walk around this community and there are a lot of rumors because everyone is so vested and everyone cares so much.
Yeah.
And a few months ago was, well, what's the old Foodland going to be? Or, what's George's Restaurant going to be? The latest rumor for George's Restaurant is a Wild Wings. And I have no idea if that's true or not. I hope it is. But, I think what some people don't understand is, and you and I talked about this too, is you don't sit there at your desk every day with a yes and no stamp saying no, yes, yes, no, no, no. You're bound by a specific set of laws set forth by provincial government to govern our municipality.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, what our major documents from a commercial development kind of stuff, residential development as well, is we have what's called our official plan and our zoning bylaw. And both of these have to follow standards set out by the United Counties, Prescott Russell, and by the province, right? So we have rules in place. So, and I've had a lot of people, like I mentioned the McDonald's earlier. People are like, oh, we shouldn't get a McDonald's. We don't need fast food. We need this and that. We needed this and that. But the township doesn't choose which businesses come into town. If the McDonald's comes into town and nobody's going there because nobody wants it, they're just going to pack up and leave. That's like any business, right? If they succeed there, it's because obviously there's a demand in the community. But like our official plan and our zoning bylaw, we basically say, okay, this land is designated commercial. And in our zoning bylaw, if it's zoned commercial, these are the types of businesses that are allowed to be there. But the township will never go as far as saying, no, we don't want that business or that business. And I'll give you an example that is easy for me to understand is, just imagine I owned a convenience store for 20 years and I was on council, and all of a sudden I get wind that another convenience store is opening. Well, you don't want members of council to start picking and choosing and saying, no, we can't have that business there. Because then you're opening it up to conflict of interest. And who is council to say yes to a business or no to a business? I mean, if you look at a lot of the business owners in the community, they love what they do, right? So if they want to invest in what they want to do and they love what they do, I don't think it's some politician that should say, no, you can't do that. Now, we have rules in place. They have to follow the rules. But to simply say, no, you can't bring this business, or no, you can't bring that business, I think that's
depending on the business. There's strict competition laws. I mean, there's not going to be a whole whack of Tim Hortons opening near these Tim Hortons because there's laws against that. They're their own laws, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, competition just does well for everybody. It does well for the businesses because it forces them to step their game up. Whether it's provide a better service, provide different services. Maybe reduce costs, pass that on to the customer. Competition's a good thing. Now, can you have too much of one thing? 100%. you can. But again, that's not for the township to decide. That's for,
the market
to decide, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the market that decides. I mean, how many pizza joints do we have in this town? Which is great. I'm not complaining. And they're all surviving, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's not a bad thing. Now, can it be hard for them? I'm sure it is. I've never worked in that industry. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are some things that, yes, township puts rules in place, but there's some things that township we have to make sure that we don't get involved in that kind of stuff because it's outside our realm.
Well, that kind of leads me to the next question here, because someone wanted to know, what does the township do specifically to attract more local businesses and commercial opportunities?
Yeah, good question. Good question. So where we as a township play a role in the development of businesses is in the infrastructures that we provide, in the services we provide. So, for example, there's a commercial development that wants to go in somewhere. We have the commercial development that's going on Saint Guillaume north of the bike path. So there's about Saint Guillaume 300. There's about 40 acres, right? So we made sure that when we were designing infrastructure, water and sewer, we serviced our commercial park behind City Hall, and we made sure to oversize it, and so that that developer could pay us for that oversizing, obviously. But we make sure we're ready for development. We put proper or official plans in place. We put proper zoning bylaws. When we talk about we have what's called a CIP plan, which is a community improvement plan. So, for example, when businesses are looking to do renovations, there's a little bit of funding there, a little bit of tax break. So, perfect example, Teresa Weaver in Russell, when she redid her building. Loisel Sport in Embrun, Garage Loisel. These companies all took advantage of this program. And as a township, yes, we give them a little break short term, but just the value of their properties goes up, which makes long term, we're making that up in no time with the increased tax base, right?
Right.
So we have to, and obviously taxes, that makes a difference for when companies are looking where to establish and stuff.
Well, and that's the other thing that's important for the community to understand is there's a vast difference between the commercial tax rate and the residential tax rate. And the more commercial that we're able to attract, the better it is for the residences.
Well, that's it. That's why since I've been on council, I've been pushing for years that we need to grow our commercial industrial tax base, because it's about 6-7% of our tax base. And you want to at least double that for healthy, because I've heard a lot of people when they move here from Ottawa, they're like, well, I pay almost the same taxes here as I did in Ottawa, and I got so much more in Ottawa. I go, yeah, I get that. But just imagine the amount of commercial taxes that is being collected by Ottawa, and still your taxes were the same. Like we're doing a lot with a smaller tax base for commercial, and your taxes are about the same. So it's not, we're doing a great job in my opinion anyways. But it's finding that balance,
Right. So I guess, and maybe we could explore that, because I think that's interesting is, are there specific marketing opportunities to attract more commercial rather than just making sure that there's areas that are open to commercial? You know what I mean? Like because what it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if a commercial it decides to come to Embrun or Russell, it's here for them. There's availability. However, do they know about it? Are we actively attracting to them? Those are the things I'm interested in, because, and the other question here, and, like I was at Robin's the other day at Homestead because we'd ordered some food for the family. Like Russell, the village of Russell is in dire need of a Homestead type pub. Maybe a little bit bigger, which is why the Wild Wings was such a really, really good rumor for the old George's restaurant. But something like that would go a long, long way.
Yeah. So what we did as a township, what we did a couple of years ago is we did a retail demand market study. So we hired an outside consultant who basically looked at what's existing in the township and what can the market sustain, right? I mentioned earlier we got tons of pizza places. So it looked at all the pizza places and said, okay, you have, I don't know, 5,000 square feet of pizza places. Well, the market can support 8,000 square feet, right? So if somebody was interested in opening a pizza place, well, there you go. That gives you an idea. Or it could be the contrary, right? Oh no, the market, like, it's oversaturated. So at least people would have access, and the companies that contact us, we supply that. So it's a tool that we have that we provide, and it's the same thing for landlords who have empty commercial space. I've provided that to numerous landlords, saying, if you're trying to attract a business, here's a good starting point. This is missing in the township. Maybe you want to contact them and provide this market study, and then they say, okay. And even for anybody in the township who's looking at, they're thinking they would like, because of COVID and whatever, they want to do, they want to open their own business. Well, take a look at the retail demand market study and see what the opportunities are.
Yeah,
but
and I think that's an important point, because a lot of people don't realize that things like that go on behind the scenes, which is, paramount in growing a community, because we are growing. And I think we're probably growing a lot faster than any of us expected, especially those who grew up here.
Yeah.
For better or worse for those people, but it's happening. Whether we're with it or not, it's happening. And it's not going to stop. I'll be frank, I moved here 20 years ago for the small town, and it's not the same town as I moved here. And in 20 years from now, it'll be considerably different. I think the challenge for us as a community and as a township is, how do we grow responsibly while keeping that small town feel? Because I think that's the most important thing, right? As we grow, yes, population's growing, but there's still ways to promote that small town feel and keep it going. 100%. I think that has to do with the residents themselves, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why we all moved here, and I think that's part of it, is they do want to get that small town feel. But we want a place to go buy a couple pints to and watch the game or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So this was a very specific question, and I know the answer to it because I know how difficult it is.
Yep.
But what's the process for agricultural land being severed to be used for residential purposes?
Very, very difficult. And that comes from what's called the provincial policy statement. So that's the Planning Act. And the reason that was put in place, to my knowledge, and this was 20, 30 years ago, was because farmers used to sever a piece of land. Like, oh, I want a house in the country. Yeah, here you go. Here's an acre of land and stuff. But as the province realized, it didn't take long, that as your population is not as dense, well, the cost of serving those communities is much higher. So I guess if I look at, for example, Nation Township, which is Saint-Albert, Limoges, they have a very high tax rate, and a lot of the reason for that is just the amount of roads they have in their community. So it's when you have one house on a stretch of kilometer road and you have to plow that road, well, that's expensive, right? But if you've got 30 houses, well, that cost is shared between 30 residents.
Right. So yeah, and I mean, I knew the answer to this one well ahead, and that goes back to you not sitting there with a stamp. I mean, this is something that you're bound by, right? This is something the laws are put in front of you, and you have to abide by them. And you explained it really, really well with the snowplow, because that's exactly it's the Planning Act protecting the municipalities, because there are mayors out there that probably have no idea what you're talking about, right? The smaller town mayors may not have that type of insight. So those laws are installed to protect them. and it's extraordinarily difficult, especially agricultural land.
Yeah.
You're not talking about severing, a 2-acre residentially zone. You're talking about agricultural, which could be, super rural.
Yeah.
Which is very, very difficult.
Yeah, no, and it's and for those, I'll just throw it out there for those who don't know, the Canadian Constitution actually doesn't even talk about municipalities, in the sense that the municipalities are what's called creatures of the province. So province create municipalities, and they determine what powers a municipality does or doesn't have. So, a lot of people, especially with the pandemic, I got a lot of people, up in arms that, I shouldn't be following the rules of what Doug Ford is saying, and it's like, that's not how it works. I see it as essentially the province are the parents and the municipalities are the kids. And we have as much flexibility as they allow us to have.
That's 100% right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So So
that's not even talking about low tier and upper tier counties or anything like that. I mean, there's a whole myriad of things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize.
That's true.
Which is why I have such respect for that. Which is why, one, I'll never do municipal politics, and two, I have a lot of respect for those that do, because it's very involved.
Yep.
2 more questions here, Pierre. Actually, one's a 3-parter. Actually, 3 questions. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The first one's quick. Are there any plans for a splash pad for the residents in the village of Russell?
There's no plans per se. That being said, the splash pad in Embrun was majority was Club Optimist. Yeah, it was Optimist d'Embrun that did the fundraising and all that kind of stuff. So if an organization or a group of people want to start doing fundraising to try put a splash pad in, township will always be, we're open to the idea. I know right now, like the group Stiver Park project, the residents there's a group of residents there that are looking at making improvements on their park. So they're doing fundraising and stuff. So, I mean, the township always open to ideas. Obviously, it's council as a whole that decides this stuff. But, whenever community groups or people come together and they have a project in mind, bring it to township and we'll see what we can do.
And that kind of hits on another question that somebody was asking earlier, but I was able to answer for them. So I also sit on the Park and Recreations Committee for the township.
Yeah.
And she was asking, is there going to be a park going up in the Sunset Flats subdivision? And there's always a plot of land set aside for the municipality to put a park in any new subdivision that is developed.
Yes.
And that's with the planning department. So I guess it would just be at the behest of the council itself to decide that you could use this specific plot of park land to put in a splash pad, provided you have the water, the lights, or whatever you need to make that happen.
Yeah. Like the splash pad is township owned land. It was Yahoo Park. So it just makes sense. But yeah, we have, whenever there's a subdivision going in, 99% of the time there's park land that is given to us as part of the subdivision. And then once that is turned over to the township, that's usually when the park will go in.
Right. Which has to do with the Planning Act and the Planning Committee, and a certain portion of that subdivision needs to be developed before the park is actually introduced to that subdivision.
That's right.
So the other questions really had to do, and this is something that's really near and dear to my heart, because I sat on the new Recreation Complex Committee when we had it a year or 2 ago. And like I said, now I'm on the Park and Recs Committee. But there are a couple questions about the recreations facility and what the future is.
Yep.
And it's going to be in phases. And I know that you said that you might potentially have a quick slide that you can show there.
Yeah, for sure. Give me
I don't want to put you on the hook there, but
give me a second here. So I think you can see my screen here.
Yep.
So this is the master concept plan that was presented to council. And we have, just for everybody, if you haven't seen it yet, go to the township Facebook page or website page. There's actual survey. This will actually be a topic of discussion with the community, with our stakeholders, different organizations, and the public as a whole. Because this is a huge project, right? This multi-million-dollar project, and we want to make sure that we get as much feedback as possible. So we really need residents to fill out the surveys and give their thoughts on the matter. But nothing has been decided in the sense, is it a pool? Is it 2 rinks, 3 rinks, 1 rink? The only decision council made was that the future library branch of the Embrun Library will be located at that area. But I'm not sure here if...
And the little red squiggly line, I'm familiar with this, obviously.
Yep.
But the little red squiggly lines, this is phase 1, and this will be completed this year, Pierre, or next?
Yeah, it's planned for this year. That being said, a lot of these companies, because of COVID, have gone backed up. So it might be, I'm hoping that it's definitely in the budget this year. But the play area here, I'll try and zoom in here a little bit. Maybe we can just... So the play area, that's where the future accessible park in honor of Jonathan Pitt is going to be.
Yep.
And then we have a couple outdoor tennis courts and a couple outdoor basketball courts. So that's in this year's budget to get completed this year. It'll just depend on if the companies are actually able to do it or not, and how backed up they are. So that's the first phase this year. In the timeline, council should be making it later on in the year. What are we going to be putting in this building? So, we have a theater, pool, library, rinks, like I said. And, that's going to be important for the discussions as well, because obviously there's a cost associated to this. I think I saw some comments on Facebook, as how we're going to pay for this. And why haven't we said how much it's going to cost? Because we haven't decided yet exactly what's going in there, right? So we have, I can say on the financial plan, council and the township have been had a financial plan in place for the last few years. So if my memory is right, I think we're at about, we could build a $23 million complex right now today, and we wouldn't have to increase taxes for it. For operational costs, that's different, but to the actual construction costs, I think we can go up to 23 million right now. But again, that depends what we want to build, right? Like, how big we're going to go and that kind of stuff. And if I think that once we get a better idea what the public's for and we get further along in the discussions and we kind of hone this plan, then we're going to get presented with what the options are, as well as what the costs are going to be. And when we start talking about costs, then we'll really be able to break it down for residents and say, okay, this is 23 million, doesn't cost anything. If we go up to 30 million, it represents a 1 or 2% increase in taxes, or whatever the case is, right? And the other, I'll just share another screen here.
While you share that screen, Pierre, I think what's really important here, and I've brought it up time and time again at the Park and Recs Committee and the Recreation Committee before that, is I hope that we do not only a public consultation, which is extraordinarily important, but also a study from other facilities such as this. Like, is theater the best use, or do we see more revenue and more use out of a gymnasium? Right. Because I don't think it's going to work to have both. Right. I think a pool is probably something that's definitely going to happen if this thing gets built and when it gets built. Yep. Arenas, who knows how many rinks are going to be in there? Probably 2, maybe 3. We don't know. Right. But I just hope that we take the community involvement, but we also do some exterior studies to really, understand how these work and what's going to best fit our needs.
Well, that's it, right? It's, we're going to, as we tweak this, there's going to be discussions. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? We can speak to other municipalities who have built similar projects and say, okay, what would you have done differently, or what worked out well, what didn't work out well, and see. But again, the community aspect is so important because, we could say, okay, we're building, a 4-lane pool. And then we find out after the fact that it was built way too small and everybody wants to use this pool and it should have been an Olympic-sized pool. But if nobody told us that, it's kind of hard to do that, right? So I think it's really important that, yes, we evaluate what happens elsewhere. But I think the community really needs to get on board on this one. And it's kind of like, once it gets built, it gets built. We can't make changes after the fact. So we want to try and do it as right as possible the first time around.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I know we got to go here soon, Pierre, but I wanted to get these last 2 questions in because I thought they were really, really important. Sure. And we laughed about this before, but one person wanted to know what book are you currently reading, or what are you currently reading outside of your...
So if it's reading... just in general, that's Reports from Council, and I'm actually taking a course right now from Dow University, so I got a lot of reading there. But I'm actually starting to read the original Star Wars trilogy book.
There you go. You were telling me earlier that Yoda's blue.
Yeah, Yoda's blue in the book. My wife told me she read it already. I haven't got to that point, but and R2D2 and C3PO aren't spelt the same way in the book, which I found, which just blew my mind. It was never even
it'd be too tough for me to read. I'm not big into fiction. I like a lot of coaching books. So I'm reading this for the second time, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite books. I love the book. You can see a bunch of my books back here.
Yep.
I like a lot of the self-help or coaching books, if you will. Tony Robbins, Julian Treasure is one of my favorite authors.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to stick to as much as I possibly can.
Here's a book, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, and I'm not sure if I got the title exactly right, but a book for me that made a lot of change in my life was called, if I remember well, it was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like for making you think about life and how important things are.
Yeah.
I recommend that book.
I read
it
I'm gonna write that down, actually.
Yeah, it's if you punch in The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, it's pretty close to it, but it was recommended to me about 8 years ago, and it just changed my perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff like that. I have 4 or 5 books that are my must reads. They should be textbooks. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, to me, should be a grade 9 course. On relationships. I wish I would have had that in football.
Peaceful Warrior. There's another one. Dan Millman.
There you go.
Fantastic movie as well.
The last question somebody had, and I thought it was really on point.
Yeah.
And it was heartfelt. And I actually did this to one of my son's friends. I reached out to the parents just to check in on the kid.
Yeah.
But how are you doing, Pierre?
How am I doing?
How's the family? How's the mental state?
Good. Overall, it's good. There's challenges like anybody else. My father passed away in January of last year. So just before that, my mom actually moved in with us. So thank God that she moved in with us so she wouldn't be stuck alone during COVID. But no, overall, I'm doing good. It's day at a time. We've had to adjust. Did a lot of renovations over the last year at home, like a lot of people. But no, I got to say this, part of the reason I started this webcast podcast thing is just because I miss this so much, interacting with people and just be able to have those connections, right? Like you spoke to earlier, building those relationships. So no, for me, this is great therapy. I love doing this.
Well, 100%. And I think that's why it was so important. And then, maybe not everybody agrees with it, but I think it was so important to get our kids back to school, because as much as they need the learning and then the parents need the break, to be all honest, they need the social interaction. They need their friends. I mean, I know when this first happened back last March, hockey got shut down, the schools got shut down, and it was difficult on my kids. It was really, really difficult because they're young enough where they didn't know what was going on. And all we were telling them was, you can't go hang out with your friends.
Yeah.
And then you start worrying about depression and, how that affects their well-being. So I think just being able to sit down and talk about it is really, really good. I have a friend who actually moved to Russell, who's a therapist, and, just talking to her, is really, really just unbelievable in how important it is to talk to people. And, part of my job is just to pick up the phone and call people, call clients. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? What are you doing today? You wanted to know about anything about real estate. And then of course I asked for some referrals because I need to keep the business going. But I think just the human interaction is such an important part of life right now, because there are people who are very COVID strict and aren't leaving their house. And, there's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors that we don't know about. And, marriages are failing, and, children aren't doing as well as they could be. So I think it's important that we just ask the question every now and then.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's there's a lot of things we take for granted. I look at my youngest is in grade 12 this year, and grade 12 is supposed to be such a huge year in high school, right? You're graduating, your last year with your buddies and all that kind of stuff, and that's just gone, out the window basically. But I appreciate the question, and I think that it's important to check in on people, the ones you love, and just your neighbors too. Just every now and then, just wave in the window, say, hey, how's it going?
How's it going? 100%. And I for anyone that's out there that's needs to talk, and I'm not exactly a therapist by any stretch of the imagination, but my number's posted all over the place, and pick up the phone and call me if you need to say hello. I'd love to talk with you and chat and learn a little bit about your life.
Perfect. Well, we've been going for past an hour, Joey, and the beer's gone.
The beer's gone.
So thank you.
I gotta go back and see Nicholas.
Hey?
I gotta go back and see Nicholas.
Nice. So I guess I think you knew the person who won, so you'll be able to reach out to her directly.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her and I'll make sure she gets that package, and I'll take a nice little photo and make sure I send it your way and Nicholas's way.
Yeah, awesome. So awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll be chatting in the future for sure.
100%. I appreciate it, Pierre. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Take care, Joe.
Take care.
So that was Joey Abrams. Thank you so much to everybody who watched this evening. I love having these conversations. I love people interacting. We get a lot of comments that are coming in, whether it's from Facebook or YouTube. I don't always have a chance to answer the question, but if ever, I didn't answer it, you can just send me a message directly and I'll do my best to get you an answer. Alors, merci tout le monde qui a pris le temps de nous regarder ce soir. Beaucoup apprécié. Puis, on va se voir la semaine prochaine. Salut, bonne soirée. Have a great night. See you next week.